what's meditation? Fixing the mind on an object, and the continual fixing on that object is meditation. Therefore, you can clearly see there isn't any difference in the object or the activity. It's just a different proficiency in holding the mind on the object. That's why, by the way, in Patanjali's system, this is called samyama. Yama, of course, means the study. So sam means together. When you have the study that takes these things together, that is formally being a yoga. That's formally being a yoga. Yeah. Right? Okay. Good. We can use that term in that way now? All right. The reason I'm making this distinction between meditation and contemplation is because the works that I'm going to refer to for this evening don't make this distinction. They just have one word, contemplation, and they don't see that they're two processes, and that's why we're going to make this distinction now, so that we can make that distinction. Next, when you fix the mind on an object, meditation, that often means that you can bring to the object of your meditation a greater depth, right? A greater depth of understanding, using understanding the way we just did. That is, knowing the reasons why things can be said the way they can be said to support the contention that man can ultimately know the object of knowledge in such a perfect way that that can be called wisdom, which is what we're going to be after. All right, so, agree? Understanding, meditation, curious thing called philosophical midwifery. Remember we said we're going to define philosophical midwifery in an unusual way. I think it's unusual, though it's quite obvious in Plato's dialogue, and therefore let's jump in. All right, here we go. Now, one of the quick ways to get into Plato is to see the difference between the natural and the ideal. So we're going to present the natural, and then we're going to shift it to the ideal. You keep in mind both, but you always keep your mind on the fact that the ideal is really what is functioning in the pursuit of understanding. So let me give an example that will therefore demonstrate this point through this idea of philosophical midwifery. As an example, here in this beautiful picture, pursuit. A fair damsel, right? And the object of his concern, without a doubt, love. Stage one. Stage two, by heavens, remarkable as it may seem, he is successful in his pursuit. And if we wanted to be careful about our language, of course, we would say, he no longer loves in step number two, because love is seeking the object of your desire, and he's got the object of his desire, and therefore this is really loving, right? The activity of it. As a consequence, as this strange story proceeds, though it has some parallels in the natural world, familiar with that stage in human experience? Mm-hmm. Yes, good. Fourth stage. We're going to call this the maturation, the nurture and development. Clearly, you can see this is the stage of pregnant. This is conceiving, and this is seeking the object of one's desire. We're calling this the natural. Now, as we say in Plato, there's always the natural and the ideal, but the ideal always takes a curious twist, and you have to watch that curious shift in order to grasp what Plato is doing. And so I'll quickly do that. Right? This is the level of the body. The parallel processes in the soul, and therefore you can see in this beautiful picture a soul in hot pursuit of something called beauty. Necessarily, following this model then, it must follow that here the soul gets into it. And here he gets into her and she lets him get into her, right? Because in the Platonic dialogue, in the Symposium, this word plays such a major role in. All love is not for the beautiful, but for bringing to birth, for conceiving, bringing birth in the beautiful. It's always in the beautiful. Now for this process, therefore, you can see with my superior talent in art, what normally isn't seen in most art museums, a pregnant soul. Doesn't it look like a pregnant soul? Right? Yes, I admire my own beauty. Beautiful, that is beauty of the work. Right now, look here, would you not agree if this follows, naturally now, we're going to have something that comes to birth, and there must be a maturation, a nurturing, and a development of whatever that is. Now, what is the birth of the soul? So what is the birth of the soul? All right, now, this is the way it appears. See, this is the way it appears. And there's a certain way in which you can read Plato where this is there. But what he is saying, while this appears to be the case, there's an ideal level. And this is the ideal level. 1, all men are in fact pregnant. All men are pregnant. It's not that we have to become pregnant. We're all pregnant. We're all pregnant already. That's man's problem. He is already pregnant, and he doesn't know it. Therefore, mankind being pregnant, and when I say man, of course, I always mean mankind, generic, right? Man then doesn't recognize his problem, that he's pregnant. He doesn't realize that a good part of the pain and the travail that he goes through is because he's pregnant, and therefore he must really be brought to a midwife. Now, Socrates' mother was one of the great midwives, and he says in the Theaetetus, my art, my philosophy is nothing other than being a philosophical midwife. It's because I can tell man's pregnancy, I can see at what stage it's at, and he said, just like my mother, I can help that person bring to birth the child of their mind. For all men are pregnant in the soul. All mankind, all men are pregnant. And when they reach a certain age, they want to give birth. They want to beget, and they don't know how to do it. So they have to seek someone who has that kind of skill. And this is the philosophical midwife. This is the Socratic figure. That's his badge. And this person then can recognize two things. Not only are they pregnant and ready to give birth, he says, but the highest art, the highest level of my art is be able to judge whether or not what is being born